From a flightless simulator at Ferris Air to a momentous meeting in an alley, to the complex mind of an architect, to every far sector in space, and to the brilliance of the central power battery on Oa. This is the podcast that covers the adventures of all of your favorite ring slingers. This is the Emerald Echo with your hosts, Adam and the Emerald Enthusiast.
Welcome to another episode of Emerald Echo, a Green Lantern podcast and vidcast. I'm your host, Adam, and with me, as always, is my co-host, the Emerald Enthusiast himself, Donnie. Donnie, how's it going?
What's up, everyone? It's the man whose ring runs on fanboy energy. It is the Emerald Enthusiast, and we're back with another episode of the Emerald Echo.
Always fun to be back with you. I haven't counted, but I don't think it's our 600th episode. But we are celebrating the 600th issue of Green Lantern today. That's the main body of our podcast today.
Yes. What DC considers 600 issues.
Right. I know you take issue with that distinction, but I mean let's play by DC's rules. Even though they don't.
There's more than that. And go ahead.
Okay. So, in case you need closed captions, and they're usually here, but in case they don't pick it up, he said there's more than that. You can take that up with DC. I'd like them to maybe stumble on this podcast and offer us free stuff to review. So I'm going to play it by their rules, and you could be the outlier. And not that they're going to give us anything because they don't watch the show. Who are we kidding? 10 of our relatives do, and that's about it. But we thank all of you for watching. But anyway, no, I'm kidding. There's a bit more than that. But and we're thankful for all of you. But so issue 600 in quotation marks is the main, second half of our podcast. But as we, like to do when we podcast, if there's news on the particular property that we're talking about, we cover it. And there's news about Green Lantern, and there's live action news. And the internet is being the internet regarding that news. But that live action news is that we have our first trailer for HBO and DC Studios Lanterns show. So, without further ado, Donnie, take it away. What did you think of the trailer?
Well, I will say you can go over to my channel, Emerald Enthusiast, and watch a full breakdown. But
shameless plug.
Shameless plug, absolutely, as always. But
everything we do is shameless. Anyway.
I was very happy with what we got. Mm-hmm. I know that there are plenty of things that they're hiding. I think there was a lot of misdirection. And a lot of things that are bothering some other people, they aren't bothering me. Because I think the building blocks that are being laid down for what this show is going to be. And I was very excited to see Hal Jordan and John Stewart talking to one another in live action, and this idea that we're actually going to get to see Green Lanterns investigating a murder on Earth, and hopefully in a very good show that will run for several seasons, and this is the genesis of that.
Right. I agree with your initial statement. So, I'll get to the controversy because you know me, I can't let it sit when I see stupidity arise.
So you're like Eric Bischoff. Controversy creates cash, or right. In our case, at least interest.
And I guess the internet is going to be like, who doesn't he like? Dave Meltzer.
He does
the
the
internet in this
PW
case is Dave Meltzer, and I'm Eric Bischoff. I never thought I'd say that, but. What was his nickname? Easy-E?
Yeah.
I'm Easy-E, clearly, because I have 10,000 multiverse wives in my head, so whatever. Anyway, so I won't argue with that distinction. But anyway, like if Margot Robbie came up to me and said, let's go, I'm out of here, let's go. Oh, inhibition's out the window. But that's a totally different podcast.
So you hear those voices in your head, they talk to you, they understand, they cancel
you. Exactly. 100%. The voices in my head, and they're all my multiverse wives.
Yeah. Is one of them Pat McAfee too? Anyway,
no.
We're getting
I
off
never
course.
hear him. I never hear him, and I don't want to hear him in my head, actually, as a matter of fact. First things first, and the most important thing. When I saw Kyle Chandler and Aaron Pierre walking, talking, sharing the screen, I didn't see Kyle Chandler and Aaron Pierre. I quite literally saw Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. They essentially, in the brief couple of minutes that we saw, however long it was, they are inhabiting their roles extremely well. And what I saw was the core essential elements of the characteristics of those two characters being depicted very faithfully. Like, you see the whole idea of how, putting the ring on the dashboard and then jumping out to let John figure out what he's got to do to save himself. Again, we don't see him saving himself. I'm assuming they're saving that for the show. Would make sense.
Right.
Don't spoil the whole premiere episode in a 3-minute trailer, like most of the Sony Spider-Man's movies tend to do. So I appreciated their discretion in what they showed and what they didn't show. But I assume John saves himself using the ring, and that's Hal's way of testing him. That is, again, top tier, what I would expect Hal training somebody with Hal's brashness and, jump headfirst into things and see how it goes, attitude. That's Hal Jordan.
That's also in the comics how many Green Lanterns train the rookies is by doing things like that, because it is a life and death scenario as a Green Lantern. Right.
And then also there were two things about John that really struck me in this trailer. One was his coming out of that situation, his calmness and his steadfastness, right? Like, you could do, like, he didn't walk out of the car and walk up to Hal and start, screaming at him or whatever. Like, he didn't throw a fit or anything like that. He was very calm, composed and rational. And, obviously, I don't think he was happy about it. Like, he called him out on it, but he did it in such a way that was, like I said, very composed and steadfast. Very much Jon Stewart. He also had a confidence to him, where, at one point in the trailer, he tells Hal, "You're old, and I'm better than you."
Kind of sounds familiar.
Yeah, it sounds like Roman Reigns and CM Punk. But still, spoilers. Maybe those guys watch wrestling. The guys, but anyway. But I felt that was very much something Jon Stewart, like, he knows he's good. In the comics, he knows he's very capable, and he's not afraid to say it.
Yeah.
And it's not a bravado thing in the way Hal does things. It's just matter of fact.
Yeah.
I'm good. Like, I know what I'm doing. I'm good in this situation.
And I definitely see parallels to Jon Stewart's first appearance in Green Lantern, Green Arrow, number 87.
Yeah, because even remember he said there was one point in that comic where I can't remember who suggested it. Might have been Hal, or might have been somebody else, about wearing a mask, and he's like, no, I'm not going to hide my identity. I am who I am.
His exact words were, "This black man lets it all hang out." So
right. So, so that confidence, that's on the page is there in Aaron Pierre's performance. We saw a quick clip of Hal flying, and I like the way he flew. In terms of the arms were down, and he was just propelled forward, as opposed to, like, I like that they showed that as opposed to arms forward like Superman. Not saying that they won't show him do that, but I like that it was a distinct. It's at least initially in the first shot that we see it, it's different than Superman. The flying motion is not all the same. I want the arms out, like the one arm out, the one arm by his side.
Yeah, the one arm cocked and the ring arm, the ring hand out.
No, but like I want certain flight patterns. If this makes any sense, it sounds like I'm an air traffic controller, and apparently you guys need some of that over there. So maybe I'll come over and do that. But I want the flight patterns of Superman and Green Lantern to be different, if possible, like when possible.
Yep.
Like I like that they're the way they fly seems to be, they have different ways of doing it. If that, again, we're talking about fictional people flying. If that makes any sense, that's what you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I like seeing that aspect of flight. We do see John holding the lantern, and it looks a little different.
And let me just say too,
but it looks cool. Like it looks vintage. I like it.
And some people have theorized that might not be the lantern they're actually using to charge. That it might be Alan Scott's old lantern.
That's a very good point. Could be.
And let me just say this too: there was controversy about the fact that when Hal flew, that he had no protective aura.
Yeah, I was gonna get to the controversy. I just wanted to go through all the things I liked first.
Okay, go ahead.
And so I like the flight. I like seeing the lantern. I love that it looked vintage. Again, hints that it might not be Hal or John's. It might be Alan Scott's, because again, we don't know the murder that they're investigating, but it has to be something significant to the GL Corps for two Green Lanterns to be doing it. Because if it was an average murder of, let's say, a Texas billionaire, what the hell would two Green Lanterns be doing there? Right?
And my thoughts are one of two things. Either someone important to the Green Lanterns has been killed, or it's a villain that's well known to the Guardians or the other Green Lanterns, and that's why they're on the trail.
Right, and something extraterrestrial in nature.
Yeah.
Those are the reasons why the Green Lanterns would get involved. They're not going to get involved in a random mugging on Earth, or two oil tycoons killing each other over oil or whatever.
Or a bunch of stolen encyclopedias.
Sure, yeah. I mean, that would be very random of them. But yeah, so it's
there was an episode for the old heads listening to this. There was an episode of Super Friends where the entire Justice League went and investigated a library had a stolen set of encyclopedias, and that required the attention of the Justice League.
Yeah, that's a little bit much, but again, that was
it was the 70s. Come on,
the 70s. So what are you going to do? But I digress. So, but I like the fact that they're, again, in a 3-minute trailer, they didn't reveal what they're investigating. Save it for the show. It makes a lot of sense. There was a scene where you see them investigating a murder scene, and they're I guess they're at a location near a motel, and there's a motel sign, and you see like the motel sign is not the lights on it aren't 100% working, but there is one light, and it's a yellow light that's working. I thought that was a nice touch, because that hints at Sinestro. So I like that, and you can't tell me that doesn't hint at the Sinestro Corps, because that otherwise it would be too random on a Green Lantern show to have the only light that's working is a yellow one.
Yeah, any kind of colored things that show up on Green Lantern shows, I note the specific color, and I always think, now how is that connected to the specific ring that has the same color?
Now let's start talking about a little bit of the controversies. Let's get one of the ways, since it's the lowest hanging fruit of where to find controversy, and that's the costume.
Yeah.
It was a quick glimpse of a costume in a closet, in a darkened closet. Keep in mind. See, my voice is salivating, and we haven't even done the Leaf podcast yet. This is how stupid the internet is. Look, would I love the Green Lantern costume to be the most vibrant shade of green, that exists on the pages of a Green Lantern comic?
And we don't know that it's not going to be.
Right. Yeah, I would, yes. But again, this is a Green Lantern costume in a closet. a darkened closet that appears to have more than one Green Lantern costume. There's a couple of suit. It's almost like the dress suit bags that when you buy a dress suit, they come in those bags.
Right.
There's like 3 or 4 of them, and the best part is, it's a Green Lantern suit because they have the Green Lantern logo on the bag.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, it's not a suit from a tailor that he's Hal's going to a wedding. If that is even Hal's closet, we don't know, because again, it's a 3-minute trailer without any context.
Mm-hmm.
But the costume is a little darker, and online there's like, where's the green? Okay, first of all, there is green in that suit. It is green.
Mm-hmm.
It's a muted shade of green, but it is green, folks. If you can't see the green, see your optometrist. It's very important that you get your eyes checked because there's green there. So the color, we don't know. There may be a reason, an extenuating reason why that costume is not as green as the internet wants it to be.
There's any number of reasons.
Potentially, maybe when the wearer is wearing it, the energy from the ring brightens it up or activates it or however you want to phrase it.
Yeah. It could just be dirty. It could be a training uniform.
Could
it could
be
belong
dirty.
to Abin Sur. It could belong to Alan Scott.
Thank you.
And there are all these explanations as to why it's not a glowing, and why it's not a glowing uniform. Now, yes, I would prefer that the Green Lanterns have the energy uniforms activated from the rings, but at the same time, there is plenty of comic source material where, especially early on in the Silver Age, where Hal was changing in and out of his costume.
Right. And somebody posted that panel on social media to say, look, it's been established in continuity before that they're physical suits.
Yes.
So, and again, I have no qualms about it being a physical suit or a construct from the ring. I actually like the fact that they went the physical suit route because the last time we had a Green Lantern live action iteration, they went with the construct, and
they spent too much money.
Remember the reaction of those? People didn't like that back then. Remember they complained?
Yeah. Oh, they said it was too bright. It's CGI, and I'm like,
right.
It's an energy costume.
so again, dear Internet, dear Green Lantern fans on the Internet, you got the construct extremely bright Green Lantern costume in the 2011 movie. When that came out, you didn't like it. And I'm specifically, forget about the movie, I'm talking about when you first saw the costume. People did not like it. I didn't mind it, but I try to be somewhat normal about these things. But the majority of the Internet didn't like it. So they gave you a physical suit. And now you don't like that either. What the hell do you want?
I like the fact that it had kind of some armor plating to it.
Right. Look, here's what it looks
like. It looked out of the ordinary, which I liked.
It looks like a cross between the Earth 1 comic and the Injustice video games. It looks like they're kind of building a bridge between the two. And that's fine because, like you're saying, the armored plating aspect gives it an alien feel to it. And the Earth 1, costume, we had always said that was probably going to be what it was looking like. We had always theorized, and then we were told that that was one of the basis of inspiration.
Yes.
So again, I was okay. I'm good with the costume. I'm pleased with it. I am gonna wait for more context to fully judge, but right now I'm good with it. I'm okay. If that ends up being the costume, so be it.
And I want to emphasize, when I saw that, I immediately thought, this is all pre-effects. This is pre-CGI.
Of course.
Because and a lot of people are looking at that and they're like, oh no, it shouldn't look this way or that way. And I'm like, we don't know how it's going to look.
You also have to remember this is a TV series, not a $250 million movie. So the effects are not going to be done yet. In fact, they're not done. they're never done for a $250 million movie until, what, a week before, days before the film's release?
Yeah.
Like, do people think Avengers Doomsday's effects are done? I can guarantee you they're not.
How many times have you seen the final trailer for a movie, and then when that scene plays in the actual movie in the theater, it's slightly different? I know I have many times.
Looks a little better. So that's our take on the costume. You mentioned the flight without the green aura present. People having a problem with that. Okay. There are several comics where a Green Lantern is flying and they don't have the green aura around them.
Especially in the Earth's atmosphere. And I was talking to Will Smith from Green Lantern's podcast about this.
Oh, I think you were talking to Will Smith, Men in Black Will Smith. I'm like, oh, how did you get his information?
I'm not sure he would care or appreciate me calling him up.
Okay, I would just love to hear that go, so about Green Lantern. Click.
Who are you? But yeah, so we talked about that, and I pointed out in several issues where we saw both Hal and John, where they're in the Earth's atmosphere,
right,
and they're just flying along, no aura. The minute they leave the Earth's atmosphere, they have the aura. Right. And it's also, again, it's up to the artist. There's been a lot of different interpretations of how that works over the years.
Right, and again, so I had no problem with that not being there. I just thought I really liked the way Hal's takeoff and the small bits of his flight that we saw looked. Because his takeoff wasn't like sonic boom. It was there's a grace to it and effortlessness kind of thing. And again, why didn't they show more constructs? Because the effects aren't done yet. That's why. I don't know why I'm whispering, but that's why. Like, look, I'd rather them not show me something that's not finished than show me effects that aren't finished and then have the internet complain even more.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we got a little tease. It was a teaser. We got a tease. And for the most part, I liked what they showed me. I was intrigued. I want to see more. And the best part about it, the two main lead actors that are playing Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart felt like Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart from the comic. Mm-hmm. That's the most important thing to me at this stage of the game.
And let me say this too. This seemed like something that for a casual fan, somebody who's not a Green Lantern reader, who may not really care about a lot of comic book adaptations, they may see this and see the vibe of two cops who just happen to have super tech rings investigating a very kind of dark, mysterious murder, and they may look at this and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to give that a watch.
Right.
Some people who otherwise wouldn't care about this. They're obviously differentiating this from the big, massive space story of the Green Lantern movie. That doesn't mean that we're not going to get some of that. We are. But what they're advertising right now, I think they're trying to draw in as many people as possible. They're already going to have Green Lantern fans.
And Donnie, I'm not worried about the comic book aspects of it and the intergalactic stuff, because the producers and directors of the show have told us in interviews that stuff is there. So I'm not worried about it in the slightest right now. Now, if I see the show and don't like what they show us, then I'll say it. But right now they've promised us that there's going to be the comic booky stuff, the intergalactic stuff. I'm going to take them at their word and believe that it's there. Mm-hmm. And the last thing I want to touch on before we move on was two things. The reaction of the internet to a joke clip where Damon Lindelof was on a comedy podcast and they talked to him about doing lanterns. And the host was like, why didn't you call it Green Lantern? And he joked because the idea of green is we think it's stupid. It was clearly a joke. The context was a joke, but the internet being the internet, and even Grant Morrison freaked out and criticized Dima Lindelof and them. First, look, I respect. How can I phrase this? I respect Grant Morrison as a writer, okay? But him going on the critique the way he did about Lindelof and them trying to water down the Green Lantern concept, he's entitled to his opinion, but to me, Grant Morrison's opinions on Green Lantern are invalid because this is just my opinion. In my opinion, and I've been reading Green Lantern since 03, 04 when I came back at the comics. 02 or 03, I can't remember the exact. It was around the Spider-Man movie, damn it. I'm old, I forget these things.
2002, that was the first Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, okay, so around there. Anyway. So I've been reading, and I've been back to Green Lantern since 04, because I remember 04, 05, because I remember I started with the trade paperbacks of Kyle Rayner, and then I transitioned to Rebirth, right? So it was around 04, 05-ish. But I've been reading, 22 years of me reading Green Lantern? Mm-hmm. In my opinion, in the 22 years of me reading Green Lantern steadily, Grant Morrison wrote one of the worst, most confusing runs on Green Lantern I've ever read. So his opinion on Green Lantern, or anything Green Lantern, means absolutely nothing to me.
Well, I'll say, I like that.
So
run. I like that run quite a bit, but this is a completely different story. So
again, to each their own. Like I'm not crapping on people that like that run. If you love that run, great. Buy 3,000 copies of the graphic novel. Read it to your heart's content. Share it with your friends. I'm not advocating that you not read something. We don't do that on this podcast. Other podcasts do that. We don't do that. Yeah. I'm not going to name names, but we don't do that. So if you like it, great. But my track record with Grant Morrison is this. For every Grant Morrison book I like, All-Star Superman, there's then, 4 or 5 books I don't like. Final Crisis, his Green Lantern run, Arkham Asylum, that painted thing that everybody lauds and I think looks terrible and reads terribly, but whatever, to each their own. So I'm not going to take Grant Morrison's thoughts on Green Lantern as gospel. But you know which group of people did take it as gospel? I'll tell you which group of people did take it as gospel, Donnie. Because there were headlines. Green Lantern writer. He wrote one Green Lantern story, for God's sake. First of all. And you know which group was the biggest proponents of taking his quotes and spreading them around the internet like wildfire? The Snyder Cult. Why? Because they're hung up on a guy who filmed a scene in CGI pajamas in somebody's garage and never got to play Green Lantern, was never actually hired, was never officially thing, but they're still hung up that they didn't get to see that. You know what? Too bad. Cry me a river, go in your parents' basements, and rewatch those 3 movies till the cows come home. But Grant Morrison's comments on Green Lantern are not the be-all and end-all of...
Well, and I believe he's kind of walked those back, too. I think he looked at it and said, maybe I misspoke a little bit. I don't know the exact quote.
Right, he did, but still, I think it's like, listen, until you've show-run a show, keep quiet, because you don't know what that's like. Look, again, I respect... You know how much respect I have for comic book writers and artists. I love them. They create my favorite medium. But being a showrunner and being a movie director is a wildly different field than being a comic writer and a comic artist. Grant Morrison, to my knowledge, does not have experience, directing, producing movies, or being a showrunner. So until he does that, and until he adapts source material that is not uniquely his own, maybe he should. Don't criticize other creators who have done it longer. Look, Dima Lindelof has created how many shows? How many of those shows have won awards? Mm-hmm. A lot of them.
Yeah.
So, who am I to, criticize him? Now, that would be like me, because you know how Scorsese and, they say, oh, comic book movies are not real cinema. I can take issue with those comments, but I can't say, oh, Martin Scorsese doesn't know how to direct because he made fun of comic book movies. He's a great director. I just don't happen to agree with his opinion on comic book movies. But the point is, Grant Morrison is not the definitive speaker on all things Green Lantern. He wrote a 12-issue series. Congratulations. I didn't like it. Donnie did. A bunch of other people that liked it.
Yeah, there were two different seasons. Yes.
Right. But regardless, it's not like he has 30 years of specifically writing Green Lantern under his belt. Now, I know this is going to anger the cult, but if Jeff Johns came out and said, you know what, that trailer didn't work for me, I'd have more respect for his comments because he wrote Green Lantern for what? Almost 20 years?
Mm-hmm.
That's a little... And the difference between Jeff Johns, much to the chagrin of Ray Fisher and the Snyder Cult, is he's actually produced movies and been involved in the production of a television show. So he's a little bit more qualified than Mr. Morrison to talk on these subjects. That's all I'm saying. But I like the trailer. You like the trailer. The internet needs to relax and wait for the show to come out and then judge it the way they've been judging this 3-minute trailer. But I'm excited. Again, you can call me and Donnie homers. We don't care.
No. Oh, not that kind of homer.
Not that homer. Other homers. But you know what? We're also Leaf fans. So when Green Lantern makes us happy, we deserve the right to be happy.
I've always said, if you want to call me a shill, you want to call me a fanboy, that's fine. I will accept those to be part of the fandom that advocates for the thing that I like.
We're not getting paid by Warner Brothers, believe me. Or DC Comics. They don't send me free stuff.
If they want to, all you got to do is mess
with me. If they want
to,
by all means. But they haven't. Like everything I've bought,
as they say, for the
Warner
love
Brothers,
of the game.
Yeah. Everything I bought from Warner Brothers and DC has been paid for. Out of pocket. So they're not paying me. Unless they're sending checks that I haven't received. In which case, call me, as I'll rectify that immediately. But as of right now, they're not paying. So we're excited. And we will wait for maybe another trailer. We might get another trailer, who knows? Or we might just get the show. But either way, when it airs, which will be, we now know in August, we don't know when. Mm-hmm. But we don't know an exact date. But when it airs, well, you can bet Donnie and I are going to be covering that show.
Yes. That's
without a doubt. So, if you want to see our coverage of the show, subscribe to the channel, because it's coming when the show comes. But that's it for news. Is there anything else you want to cover before we take a break and move on to GL600?
No, not for right now. I think we covered it well. And yeah, like I said, it just made me more excited for August. And again, obviously there are people who they want to see certain things and they didn't see those certain things. But I think it's way too early to jump the gun and say that this is how it's going to be and it's not going to work, because I see some pieces put in place for something that I think could be very successful.
Yeah. This was a tease. It wasn't the full show. So let's just wait and see. But for right now, we're going to take a quick break. And on the other side, we're going to talk about the landmark, but debatable, Green Lantern issue 600. We'll be right back.
Don't go anywhere. What's up, everyone? It's the Emerald Enthusiast. For all of your multiverse viewing and listening needs, check out our shows, which include Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Ghostbusters, Power Rangers, the Marvel Universe, and the DC Universe, including the Emerald Echo podcast. You can check us out on Podbean, and remember to subscribe right here on YouTube. That's the Multiverse Musings Podcast Network. From the first podcast to the last. And we're back.
We are, and as promised, it's comic talk time. That should be a segment. I think that should be a title of a segment. Comic talk time. We're going to talk about issue or legacy issue number 600.
And issue number 33 of the current run, the current volume.
Yes, if you're keeping track of the actual.
Yeah, it has them both on the cover, so you're not going to be
well,
confused.
the 600 isn't big. I mean, anybody can see that number. 600. It gets splashed on the side of the page there. But yeah, it's 33/600. So Donnie, kick us off.
Well, it picks up with the conversation that we saw in the previous issue with Hal basically turning the reins of being the Green Lantern of Earth over to Kyle and saying, I need you for this, and now I've got to go. And Kyle's like, where are you going? And by that point, Hal's already gone.
Yeah.
And so the 4 stories, by the way, there's 4 stories in this issue. It's an oversized issue. I Love L.A., City of Angels, Brighter Day, and Light in Darkness. And now the narrative switches to 1 week later, and we see that Kyle is in a car with Odyssey in L.A., and he's caught in traffic.
Right.
And the deal here is that Kyle is moving back to L.A., and he's going to try to settle his life there. He has Odyssey with him. He gets a transmission from Jessica Cruz, and she's like, wait a minute, you're supposed to be there looking for these criminals. And Kyle's like, yeah, I'll get to that, but I got other fish to fry.
Well, it makes sense that he's going to move back if he's going to be taking the reins of the main Green Lantern.
And if you are a fan of Volume 3, specifically the run that started with Ron Mars and Darryl Banks, this is going to feel like coming home. This is going to feel very familiar to you. And if you're someone who's picking up Green Lantern for the first time, this is another great starting point. Because you get not only, in this issue, you're going to get the origin of Kyle Rayner, a retelling of that, and a retelling of Hal Jordan's origin.
It was so great. It was almost like if I felt like I was back in. I felt like I was back in 04 again. And then I looked in the mirror and saw the white in my goatee, and I'm like, okay, it's definitely not 03, 04 anymore.
Yeah, I'm definitely not going to confuse my current self with myself from 30 years ago. There's a lot more
also,
gray here.
In 02, 03, the Leafs were in the 3rd round of the playoffs, and it's definitely not 02, 03 anymore. But we'll get to that in a bit.
Oh, boy. But so the scene kind of flashes backward, I should say, and we actually see from the story City of Angels. This is Kyle having a flashback to his life, and what really excited me his early life is that this is actually the first panels are pre-Alexandra DeWitt. Remember when we first meet Kyle, he's kind of having this tumultuous relationship with Alexandra. That's when we meet him first in Volume 3. This shows him and his mother, and it shows him kind of growing up. And this really fleshes out why Alexandra was kind of fed up with Kyle's antics.
Yeah.
Because he's not a bad guy, but his head is in the clouds. He's not really paying attention to her, and we see that kind of went back to school where his teachers were always trying to focus him, but he's always drawing, always sketching, even when he shouldn't be.
Now, see, this is why I appreciate the dedication of artists, because if I was in Kyle's shoes and my girlfriend looked like Alexandra DeWitt, you think I'd ever get any deadlines done with the drawing? I don't think so.
Well, the scene does flip over to the two of them, and we see that, again, the two of them together...
They're in the club, Donnie. They're in the club.
Yeah, well, there's also some panels here where she's obviously coming over and encouraging him, and he's ignoring her. There are 3 different panels here where it's 3 different days, because they're both wearing different outfits, and
Right.
he's ignoring her. And it says that, that he's not so great with time, he's not so great with money, and the fourth panel is just Kyle by himself,
Right,
with a whole bunch of like takeout on a table, and it's kind of a dull gray background because she's not
Right.
there.
Yeah, and in a book with power rings and constructs and aliens, the most unrealistic thing is a guy ignoring Alexander DeWitt. That's just me.
Well, he does try to get her back, which is in continuity with what we saw in the original comics that Ron Mars wrote, that he does go to, they don't call it the Heretic Club in this, but that's, Kyle said that he got the ring originally outside of the Heretic Club. He goes to a club and tries to talk to her. She's not having any of it, which was, again, her attitude when we first meet her in the Green Lantern comics. He goes out into the alley, and lo and behold, there is Ganthet, and we get a retelling of Kyle's origin where Ganthet says, "You shall have to do," and extends the ring to Kyle.
The art in this was fantastic.
Yeah. V. Ken Marion is
spectacular.
drawing the scenes we're talking about.
I love the way, I love his work on Green Lantern, the limited, amount we've seen of it. I hope he does even more.
And also, the little continuity point, Kyle's very first costume was a standard Green Lantern costume with the white gloves, and that's what he is wearing when he first activates the ring. And then later on, we see the numerous costumes that he's worn over the years, including the Ion costume as well as the White Lantern costume.
Absolutely.
And he's telling all of this to Odyssey while they ride along.
Yeah.
Now, I want to talk about... There's so much in this. I'm going to gush over this issue, by the way. I love so much that happens here. So, Wally West shows up and is like, Kyle, you have to get a job. And he actually helps him set up, and then he finds this place called Lost Cause Studios that has recently fired all of their artists because the guy who runs this place is replacing them all with AI.
Okay, two things about it.
Go ahead.
Two things about the name of the studio sounds like some seedy porn studio kind of thing. Number two, I got a kick out of the fact that the whole, the commentary about AI.
Yes, and that's what I wanted to touch on. But you go ahead, share your thoughts first.
It made a lot of sense, and coming from a writer, a commentary on AI, coming from an artist and the writer, obviously, Jeremy Adams, and the artist, V. Ken Marion, as you say, is very appropriate, and this is the way to. I think this is the best way to say your piece on AI instead of just blurting it out on social media or whatever, or getting into a rant with some faceless people on social media. This is the best way to voice your opinion. I thought it was eloquently put.
And so the owner of Lost Cause Studios is taken over by this alien, and he actually uses the AI to start making constructs. And as Kyle goes in to ask for a job, all of a sudden he realizes what's going on here, and he's confronted by this guy with this like giant spider-like construct. And so then we see a face-off between AI and the mind of the most dangerous Green Lantern to fight. If it's a fight against of creativity, who's the one Green Lantern you don't want to fight? That's Kyle Rayner. Because it's like Jeremy Adams said here, AI can only use what has been previously put out there. It can't actually create things.
And I like the fact that it wasn't, the way it was written, it wasn't, just crapping all over AI. It was just stating a fact that AI can put out something that is based on already existing material. It cannot create new imagery, new stories.
And look, AI is here. We know that, and
It's a useful tool.
There might be
but you should
some
never-
things that can come out of that, but when we see corporations choosing this over paying actual genius creative people,
Yeah,
that's what Jeremy Adams, I think, is saying is a problem, and that's what I
Yeah,
think is a
right.
problem.
that's right. But I like the way he said that without saying, "Well, AI is 100% trash in all its forms." Nobody ever said that in this issue, and so I appreciate it. Like he just had Kyle lay out the facts of what AI can do versus what it cannot do.
Right. And obviously, it did not overcome Kyle. By the way, you get to see his new costume here. I do like it. I wish he had the white eyes on the mask, but that's a very small criticism.
Yeah.
And I like the way that he finally overcomes the situation is by kind of using a vacuum to vacuum the alien out, and you see the word "suck."
Yeah.
And he's able to capture this alien, which is actually one of the ones that he was actually commissioned by Jessica Cruz to capture.
And I like the fact that there's a scene where, Wally and Odyssey are, you're walking through the studio, and they're like, "Oh, this must be a location of one of those horror movies."
Right.
And Wally's like, "I'm tired of horror movies. I'd much rather a good alien body snatcher than." And then Kyle gets thrown through the wall and goes, "Careful, alien body snatcher alert."
Exactly.
That was really funny.
But yeah,
I like that. Sorry, Donnie.
But yeah.
I like that Wally was there because it re-energizes, reaffirms their friendship between Wally and Kyle.
And remember, that was something they had to work at when they initially bumped into one another in Volume 3. They didn't get along very well.
Right.
And the fact that Wally shows up and he's willing to help Kyle here, that was something that they eventually became friends and they respected one another. And yeah, it was really cool. Like I said, I really did like the battle scenes, the constructs that were created, and the fact that it kind of ends that way with Odyssey and Wally and Kyle talking about Kyle making this transition and starting this new chapter in his life.
Right.
And so, for those of you who are wondering about Hal Jordan, it does cut back to Hal briefly, and it just says, "Meanwhile, somewhere in space," and we see Hal with Jaina of the Wonder Twins, and he is...
Talk about super friends.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's out of power. The Manhunters are here. The Manhunters show up, and what's he going to do? They do have a craft that the two of them exit in, and it says, "Where are they going?" You'll find out next issue.
Oh, great. Good. Something to look forward to.
And we also see, for those of you who have been following along, the kind of a decimated version of Hal Jordan that Krona is.
Right.
And if you're unfamiliar there, Krona has taken the form of Hal Jordan. He obviously does not completely look like him. He kind of looks, scarred up on one side of his face.
It's like Two-Face meets Hal Jordan.
Yeah. And so then we get a retelling of Hal Jordan's origin, about Hal being the man without fear, not the one in Marvel. That's a different thing.
Daredevil, love him. He's great. Yeah.
But
we're going to talk about him soon.
We see, and I like the point that was made here, that basically when something in your life happens that is so bad and so earth-shattering, that after that shaped, and we're talking about the death of Hal Jordan's father, that shaped who Hal Jordan was, because he wasn't afraid of anything anymore because the worst had happened.
Right.
And we see him
like that,
getting into fights with bullies, like a group of bullies who are all bigger than him in school, and he still takes them on.
Yeah. And I like that this precipitated a flashback to Hal's entire origin. And it's the reasoning behind it is because Krona is trying to learn more about what makes this guy so special that this is the form that I take.
And I like to. I just want to say when when you get stories from volume to volume, I always take note of what is in continuity, because not everything,
Right.
a writer is not under any obligation to use every piece of continuity, but I noticed
Right.
that they kept the fact that Hal Jordan was in the Air Force.
Right. And also, like I said, the core essential elements are the same. Like the main, you don't see any veering off of the beaten path, as it were, right?
Yeah.
But so I like the conceit of the story. Krona finding out what makes Hal tick. I think that was a good reasoning to take a look back.
Mhm.
Also, Dan Jurgens on art. Oh my God, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Just absolutely glorious.
That last page in particular, you see Hal, and you see him in the background, and it gives kind of a collage of the various versions of Hal over the years.
He's with the core
as the Spectre, as Parallax, Emerald Twilight, fighting with the core, fighting alongside of Green Arrow, and as well as Hal
and the Justice
in
League.
the Justice League.
Yeah. Like that's a phone or desktop background, just waiting to happen. It was It was fantastic.
Yeah. And then the issue ends with a story called Light in Darkness. And this is what had me, I guess, and no disrespect to anybody else who contributed here, but this was done by Kyle Rayner's co-creators, Ron Mars and Daryl Banks. And when I heard
Friends
that they
of
were
the show,
when they were going to be coming back to that, like I was like a kid in a candy shop. I was like, yes, whenever I hear that they're coming back to write Green Lantern and do anything Green Lantern involving, it makes me excited.
Yeah, it was great. It was. It was. Really an appreciation of Kyle Rayner and his previous time as the Torchbearer, but also I took it as the two creators showing their appreciation for the time they had with their creation, and also for the fans that have enjoyed him and what he's brought to the legacy of Green Lantern. But at the same time, at the ending, when just to jump ahead, when the new recruits are lauding all of Kyle's achievements and everything he's done for the Corps, saying things like he's the reason everything that's come after exists. It's true, because without Kyle and without the success of that run, maybe the Green Lantern book would have been canceled. Who knows?
Or at least for a while. I mean, who knows what would have happened to Green Lantern. And
right.
Also, and we won't get into this today, due to the writer who was on Green Lantern before Ron Mars and Daryl Banks, that's not reprinted. DC doesn't reprint that, and you know why. Right.
And but also, Kyle, after he's getting all these compliments from the recruits, he makes a point of saying, it's not just me; it's everyone that came before me and after me.
Yeah.
So it's the celebration of Kyle on the one hand, but also the acknowledgement of Green Lantern is just more than this one iteration or two specific creators.
Yes.
And I really like that touch. That was a sweet touch by both Ron and Daryl to do.
And what Adam is talking about here is that there's a runaway ship, and there are two rookie Green Lanterns, Voltans and Peary, and they're trying to save it, and they're failing. And Kyle gets involved, and I've got to say, the art here is absolutely astounding, because it really it's what you would expect from a master artist like Daryl Banks. And the just from everything, like the aura that's surrounding Kyle and the constructs that he makes. He makes a genie here, and it's absolutely amazing. He these giant chains to get this under control. And we also see him, we also see the history that he has and his camaraderie with the Corps and John and Guy and Hal, and it really is amazing. And even the backdrop here, every panel is just so intricate. The coloring is great.
Stunning.
And yeah, I like what you said, that, he's like, yes, I've done all this in the past, and I appreciate the fact that people have such respect for me, but I'm still figuring it out day after day.
Yeah.
I don't have it all figured out. Yes, I may be the one they call the torchbearer, but I don't have all the answers.
It reminded me of that scene. Remember at the end of Superman, when he's talking to Lex Luthor, he's like, you know, I make mistakes, and that's my greatest fear. But every day I put one foot in front of the other, and try to do the best I can. It reminds me of that. That was one of my favorite scenes in Superman, and it reminded me a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we've covered, in terms of our coverage so far of Volume 3, we've covered a lot of Daryl's work, and it's always good. Like, it's always great. His work is always so good. But I gotta say, these pages from him in this issue, I think they're some of his best stuff yet.
I mean, he is. It's hard to say.
And I'm not just waxing, poetically, because he's been on the show a couple times. Like, I call it like I see it.
It's hard to say that somebody who was so good from the start has progressively gotten better, but that has been the case.
Yeah.
I actually messaged Ron Mars and said that I appreciated just how profound the final words of this story were, because I think they're timely for the world that we live in today. And I want to read those exactly here right now, what Kyle is thinking as the story closes. And you see him once again working on his art. He said, he talks about his time as a Green Lantern. He said, I did the best that I could. Yes, I made some mistakes, sometimes terrible ones, but I'm still here. I'm still trying. This is what I've learned. Even when you're surrounded by darkness, you can be the light. Always be the light.
And boy, do we need more light in this world.
No matter how bad the situation is, you can always take action to make the world better.
Be the light in your own personal sphere, in your own personal neighborhood, whatever the case may be.
So to everybody who worked on this issue, thank you. Ron Mars, Daryl Banks, Jeremy Adams, Romanico.
Great.
This was, to me, it was like opening the door on a cold November morning and smelling your grandmother's Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah.
Like coming home again.
Now I'm getting hungry. But that's here and there.
We got another podcast to do. Hold it. Hold your horses, buddy.
I'm having cheesecake this weekend because it's Easter, so I'll be like, it's, and I haven't had my mother's homemade cheesecake. It's been about a year or two. So that's what this issue felt like. It was as yummy as my mother's cheesecake, or at least what I remember it to be. We'll see how that turns out Sunday, but maybe it did turn out this Sunday, and I misspoke. But I'm sure it's going to be great because my mom's cooking is always great. But so. And it's always great whenever Ron Mars and Daryl Banks reunite on Green Lantern. That's what happened in these final pages, and it was indeed very sweet and very great. And yes, in light of being called the homers again, Donnie, we're going to rate this issue. So, out of 5 for story and art, what would you give each component?
I'm going. There's almost nothing I can criticize. This is, I think, a perfect issue. And I like I said, I read this, and yes, it's a jumping on point. It's a new start for Kyle, but there was so much here that felt familiar, and this was amazing. Like I said, you had a social statement, a couple of social statements that felt like they were bigger than just the story.
Right.
And sometimes comics can be a little bit bigger than the ingredients that make the story, and I think this is one of those, with the statement on AI and the statement about being a light in a world that sometimes is pretty grim, pretty dark. But this was, I don't know, this might be my favorite issue in years.
Filled with orange darkness. I'm not talking about Larfleeze either.
Well, my mind went there too, but yes, like I said, I mean, if I could give a bigger rating than perfect, I would. So yeah, 5 and 5.
Well, you know what you could do? You could chew some gum, spit it out, slap it in the air, and then tap yourself in the back is what you could do, and then it would be more than perfect.
And then throw a football to myself.
Yeah, oh, that would be, or yeah, the dart, you know, the perfect dart right in the middle. But yeah, no, for me, I thought the social commentary on AI was perfect without getting exceedingly preachy or condescending, which, you know, sometimes if you take it too far or take it in the wrong direction, it might be. But in this case, I thought it was perfect. It was perfect, and it echoed a lot of my sentiments on AI as well. At least when it comes to this medium, because I can't imagine not having the heart and soul of a writer and an artist imbued in these characters that we love so much. In terms of being an anniversary issue and a celebration, I thought, you know, the two recountings of both Kyle and Hal's origins were you know, familiar callbacks, but still offered some freshness in those retellings as well. Specifically because, you know, you had different artists than the original origin stories, so that brought a fresh look at things.
Yeah, I love retellings, by the way.
And it was, you know, slightly different angles on the stories.
Yeah.
One, one is coming from the perspective of Corona, trying to figure out what the hell makes Hal Jordan so special, and then it's Kyle's perception of his own origin. It's not like we're watching from a PO. Like the first time we saw Kyle's origin, it's like we're watching it from a POV, like it's happening to us, like we're part of the story. Here it's like he's talking about his experience, so there's a different slant on it. So they felt familiar but unique at the same time. And then, despite it being a big 600th anniversary celebration issue, they also laid the groundwork of storylines to come, which I think is the perfect blend that a milestone issue should take. So that's a long-winded way of saying it's a 5 for story and a 5 for art. And I think that wraps it up for this issue, Donnie. So with that being said, Green Lantern is forever. From the first issue to the 600, which is not the last. So long, everybody.
So long, everyone.